People are concerned about the announcement by the MTN that they're increasing the prices of their various products, data, voice, broadband, and all of the mix by at least 15%. And I think they haven't raised their charges for a while. Guys, there are two issues for me here. The brand dominance of MTN that the ministry tried to control with the significant market player announcement, which hasn't really worked. There appears to have been a decline in the strength of MTN's competitors, and they are the strongest in the market by a mile. Whether it's always best to use a regulatory approach or a market approach to try and manage competition. All right. In fact, if you look at what's happening even with the import thing, it's the same question, right? So what we learn in economics is that you can either use a market approach, incentives. So you can use tariffs from the policy side, or you can simply come with a regulatory approach to say you cannot have more than X% of the market share. I think it depends on the context, because if you look at competition in sectors, some advanced countries have realized that you need a competition law because the rules of business are not necessarily logical rules. So if you go to advanced societies, they have a competition law that they use to try and regulate the way a market pans out, right? But if you come to the situation with, and some reason I'm trying to compare two unequal things. So on the import export side, if you use a market approach, you can say we will increase tariffs so that when the price becomes higher, people will opt for less of it, so that the demand for offals will be so high that the importers will have no incentive to keep importing it. So, classic example, you can export rice to Japan technically, but nobody's going to do it because the tariff on the rice in Japan is like 95%. So it doesn't make sense for you to do it. So that's the market approach. Or you can use regulation and say Japan does not import rice from anywhere. Now, the little economics I've learned suggests that it depends on where you are and which tool works. So now let me pull that analysis into the telco sector. We had I think 15 years ago, you could say we had a very competitive industry market landscape. MTN, Airtel, Tigo, Vodafone. Glo was trying to enter, and there was a lot of noise about Glo's entry.
Yeah.
All right. Now, fast forward now, the government said MTN had become so powerful that they were a significant market player. So they're trying to use regulation to control its size. All right. I think, from my cursory observation, the regulatory approach has not necessarily worked. A market approach would have been to say, incentivizing the other players or finding a way to increase the competition without lowering the quality of service that customers get. And by the way, I'm not saying competition necessarily is an end in itself. Again, in economics, we learn that when you have competition leads to better products and lower prices. That's what the theory tells us, but that's not necessarily true. Because you can go to certain countries where monopolies or oligopolies, and sorry for these big words. So a monopoly is ECG. They are the only distributor of power. An oligopoly is where 4 or 5 companies control a market and they can set prices. I think there is a lot of meat in analyzing the telco sector and the regulatory approach of government and whether it has worked or not, and whether the government should have used a market approach. And I think, again, if I'm an economics professor, I'll tell my students to even compare the import-export thing using market versus regulation, and then MTN increasing prices now, and then extrapolate all of that and look at even data. Because now, in this business, without data, we can't work. He will tell you the number of headaches we've had discussing data.
Finding a proper
We
solution.
pay a lot for
i.e.,
data.
i.e. internet access.
We've tried. I don't know how many companies have you tried? Like 10. We are even tired. So there's a lot of lack of clarity. Let me speak to CATS International's Apia Kusi Adomako before I come in studio to see if my theory holds water. Apia, thanks for joining the program. So we've been discussing this import-export thing, and I get the sense that the government wants to use a regulatory approach to influence a sector that a market approach would have been better. I want your quick comments on that, and then we'll come to the MTN price increase as well. Do you agree that what the government is trying to do with the import restriction is a regulatory approach? And tell us whether that's the best way to go about it or whether a market approach would have been better.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bernard, and your listeners to Citi CBS this morning. Let's start with the MTN, or do you want to start from the import restriction?
Start from MTN. Start from MTN.
Okay, so I think MTN case is a system of regulatory failure from the side of the regulator, the National Communications Authority. I've been saying that MTN did not become significant market player overnight. NCA saw on the dashboard the market size of MTN, but it slept through the whole period until one morning we woke up and we saw MTN crossing over 65% of the market. And so they have been forced to implement the Section 13 of the Electronic Transactions Act. That requires government to move from market approach to regulatory approach in terms of tariff. But for me, I think that we've seen how the excesses of this regulatory approach, how it is affecting consumers, and then it is helping the side of the other competitors. So if you ask me whether it is regulatory approach or market approach, I think we need a combination of two. One, recently MTN wanted to expand its bandwidth to be able to provide more of these internet services. But the government said that it will not sell it to MTN. Meanwhile, the other competitors, Airtel, Tigo, and Vodafone, are not also willing to buy because the thing is expensive. What then prevents government to discount this the spectrum lower so that the Vodafone or Airtel, Tigo can buy it? Once they're able to buy it cheaper, they'll be able to also provide services cheaper, and that could also kind of tilt the balance of data to the side of these firms. But government is still concerned about revenue, so they don't want to reduce the price that of selling the spectrum to the other two competitors. And so that is where, regulatory approach.
So if they had used, so if government had decided to price discriminate and say, Airtel, Tigo, and Vodafone are smaller players in the market, we want to prop them up in data, so we are going to reduce the price of spectrum for them, would that have been a regulatory or market approach?
I think it is more of a regulatory approach, but its impact will be felt on the market side of the equilibrium. Yes, so that is one. And also, the other regulatory approach, which government has not done, is that these two companies, Airtel, Tigo, and Vodafone, they have not been investing in the market. And this is where the problem, that is the genesis of the problem. And as of now, they are not also even investing. And now MTN also cannot also further invest. So even the way things are going, if we do not push regulatory approach to compare this, because look, if Vodafone and Airtel Tigo are to scale up their investment and come up with new products, that's going to ginger the competition, and that could also increase their share of the market. And in the long run, maybe we may come up to 50-50 or whatever. But these firms are not invest. I even blame government. Government is the of the Vodafone. And let's ask ourselves, when did government even put money into Vodafone? Government is only interested in what? Return on the investment, but they are not trying to invest. And so we cannot look at only on the side of market approach, but I think that the regulatory approach is very, very important.
Fair enough.
Now,
hold on. Let's stay with MTN. You said the government watched MTN increase in size before coming up belatedly with the single market player regulation. Now,
Yes.
are we not making MTN a victim of its own success? MTN succeeded because the owners of the company invested in the company and got the right managers to manage it. So if you compare MTN to Glow, for example, Glow wanted to come in with a lot of noise, but Glow really didn't materialize. But MTN is strong because they have investment and they are well managed. Now, shouldn't the government rather have taken advantage of the MTN flotation of shares to become a part owner of this business that was doing well so that they could use their influence as a part owner of MTN to mitigate any anti-competitive behavior? Should that not have been the approach?
That I mean, government becoming a shareholder in MTN would not have done much because being a shareholder means that MTN will still be strong, and at the board meeting you can't compel MTN to maybe reduce it. I mean, to scale down its investment. And I think that the best that government could have done, and I always been blaming NCA for slipping through all these things. And if you look at even the telcos, Airtel, Vodafone, I mean, this firm, Vodafone was here, that is the then Ghana Telecom, and then One Touch was there before MTN came. Chigo was also here before MTN came. And so why MTN believed in the market, but other firms didn't believe in the market to sink money into the sector. And even when you look at the NCA licensing requirement, there's nothing like a investment requirement. All you need is to meet some KPIs. There's nothing to say that look, as an investor, as a company, you must invest at least 30% of your previous year earnings into the sector. There's nothing like that, and that is where the regulatory thing has failed. And if we don't continue, if we don't insist that these firms, but for now, maybe MTN maybe has to slow down a bit, and that is also another regulatory approach to ask a competitor which has attained S&P to slow down its investment, because the more it scales up its investment, is then kind of what it will eventually become a monopolist in the long run. And so we need to ask other firms like the Airtel Tigo and the Vodafone to scale up.
So you're basically saying that competition for a sector like telcos, competition is necessary. Is that always the case? Because I thought in the US, I stand to be corrected, I thought they have like one or two, Verizon, AT&T or something. Do you really need a lot of players? Do you need a competitive market for people to get good prices and good quality? Is competition the best proven path for quality products and reasonable prices? Couldn't a monopoly do that if it is well regulated?
Getting a monopolist to run your telecom sector, one thing is the monopolist has no incentive to even invest in infrastructure. But when there's a competition, you see that firms are investing in new products. They are doing a lot of offers. And so competition is the way forward for a sector like the telecom. And we have seen how competition in this sector has played out very, very well. Because in the past, when Spacesoon came as a GSM, then Tigo Mobitel was what? Analog. And that is how the competition played out. This one will go and break this, another one will come overtake that. So competition is very good for the market. So we don't want to see a monopolist in the telecom sector which is regulated, because monopolist has no incentive to do anything, because it is always getting rent from its investment. And now another thing is that if a monopolist feels that there is no threat to its power in the market, because now no firm would want to come to invest in the telecom sector to come and play in the market, because the market has tilted to the side of MTN, and you need billions of dollars to be able to come to compete, and even as to whether consumers will even switch, because a lot of people have found brand loyalty, switching costs. If I want to switch from, let's say, MTN to a new player, I may have to throw away my devices and all those kind of things. And so people think about all these things, and then they say, look, let me still stay with. If you go to US, for example, people talk against AT&T about its unfair things, but then people still cannot move away from AT&T because they are kind of locked in. And so what we need to do more is to make sure that we get we deploy both a market approach and also a regulatory approach.
All right.
And I also want to say that this is not the first time that a firm has been declared SMP. In some countries, in Europe, it has happened there many times, and they utilize the best approach. And I want NCA and the Ministry of Communication to deploy strategies and plans so that consumers do not bear the brunt of this. Suffer from the hangover of this SMP, because now MTN data has gone up 15%, not because of what the cost of operation, but because of what this thing. So how long shall we suffer from this? And I think
MTN in their release said that they are raising prices because of cost of operations. They did not say that it was because of the SMP. They said
no. Please, if you look at the daily graphic announcement, which I can share it with you, they use due to regulatory reasons. So the SMS test was how do you call it, was cost of operation, and then the daily graphic was regulatory reason. And I think that between SMS and daily graphic.
So let me just be sure. No, they sent an SMS to their users saying they were going to increase price based on operational cost. Of course, they can't explain that. But I don't understand how being declared a significant market player then feeds into raising tariffs, unless they are saying that it prevents them from expanding. Did they explain in the daily graphic story?
No.
How they jump from that to 15% increase?
No, they didn't. They just provided the tariff increase. But one thing about the SMP is that now MTN cannot sell anything lower than what any of the competitors are selling. For example, if MTN is selling 10 GB data for 20 Ghana cedis, and then Airtel Go also come to move from, let's say, come to that particular band price, MTN will have to move up. And now this has also caused Airtel Go and Vodafone they have started increasing their prices because they have been given the leeway to increase prices. And as to whether anytime they increase their prices and they get closer to MTN will also have to go up a little bit. And that is what we are facing now. But the question is whether all the profit that these smaller firms are making, they are investing into their network to be able to improve upon their share of the market. That is what I think NCA should be looking at.
And I just wanted to give you a quick background, listeners. So on June 9, 2020, the NCA declared MTN Ghana as a dominant or significant market player in the local voice data and SMS market. Now, the policy states that in general, significant market player will be determined to exist for an organization providing telecom services that controls at least 40% of a relevant market segment. Now, this declaration was under Act 2008, Act 775, to correct the imbalance in the market. Now, key point, how did this affect MTN's customers? Now, in relation to the price of products, MTN Ghana cannot price their products below the interconnect rate and must maintain parity in off-net and on-net prices and ensure that their prices are not the cheapest in the applicable market segment. So if anybody offers a lower price in MTN's competitors, MTN cannot go below. If Airtel is offering 2 cedis per whatever, MTN cannot be lower than that. All right? So as a consequence, the company revised its pay-as-you-go rate and tariff for bundles and other offerings. Right? And of course, Apia is saying, and I think he's right, that is part of the reason why they've now increased their rates by minimum 15%. Just a couple of points. Can we say that 3 years since the NCA announced this SNP, it hasn't really made competition better? If anything at all, MTN is still the strongest, if not stronger. Because I'm not sure if between 2020 and now you can say that they've weakened.
Not necessarily. I haven't seen any form of data to support that. But
Even though the market share, they have this market
Yes.
share thing that suggests that they are below a certain threshold.
Yes.
But I think a casual look at the market suggests that they are still very, very strong.
Yes, and I think for me the biggest takeaway from this is from Apiakusi's points was the fact that the competition that this was supposed to stimulate, we haven't seen the level of investment perhaps required to stimulate them to grow enough to take up some of the space that MTN occupies. Okay, so that is something that we can look at, and most of these will require government support because then you're looking at Vodafone, Airtel, Tigo, which is now AT or AT. We don't know which one it is.
Does Glow still exist here, or they've gone?
I think
Glow is gone.
data-wise,
They are not operating.
They are not operating, yes.
I think they have transferred their
Assets.
no assets, their clients to one of
the two.
telcos, yes.
yes. So that's something that needs to be looked at because if you've declared somebody as a company as an SMP and the other competitors in the market are basically your own entities, and we are not seeing the kind of stimulus required to get them to improve and occupy the space that you think the major player is occupying. In the end, you end up disadvantaging the consumers. And so that is something that we need to look at. But for now,
So we can boldly say the SMP has not worked because
that's
MTN
the claim I can make, honestly.
No, I think I can say that because you see two things. You said somebody's SMP because the market is distorted and therefore consumers don't get the best. The market leader cannot lower price below his competitors. We want lower prices and better service. We complain that cost of data is too high. So if the market leader that has about 70% of the market cannot lower his price, then 70% of the people will have a higher price to pay. Number two, his two main competitors don't seem to have invested that much in the aftermath of declaring SMP. So can you tell me that between 2020 and now, Airtel, Tigo, and Vodafone are stronger than they were 3 years ago?
No.
You can't say that. Even Glow was not, in fact, as he just said, Glow has even disappeared. So
Space.
I think we can safely say that that policy may not necessarily have worked.
But that policy may not have worked because, like I was saying, those two companies
Have not responded in the way they should.
Yes, now the response will come from funding, in part from
By
their
their
major
investors.
shareholders,
Yes.
which would be who?
So
Government of Ghana.
who is the main shareholder of Vodafone? Government?
No,
No, the British. Vodacom.
Let me
the
just-
South African
well,
version.
no. Government is not the majority shareholder.
But they do have some shares.
Yeah, they do. And they still have the shares.
They still have the shares.
Yeah, But see, I think all these interventions are necessary, but these interventions are required for a certain kind of competitive environment, which the ideal competitive environment where the players are all active. Okay, I am not so sure whether that's what we have. Some of the competitors have been disabled by shareholder decisions, the whole ownership acquisitions and mergers.
So, for example, government has 30% of Vodafone, but they
Yes,
have
the
not.
rest is with Telcel.
Government has not been able to.
no, that's the new. They
Yeah.
just
No,
they just
I'm
came.
taking out
70% has been
between.
transferred.
Yeah, that's not. They just
Yeah,
took
but
over from.
I'm saying that 30% they had, they've not really invested it in cash. So it's like there's reluctance on the other investors' part to also inject money because the government has not put in its part.
But your investment is always based on a certain context and agreement. Maybe the agreement doesn't give you a certain level of operational involvement.
No, I agree with what I'm just saying. I'm just giving information that government owns 30% of Vodafone.
Yeah, that's correct.
When there's a need for, like as you say, we need to invest to maybe expand our network. The majority shareholder is reluctant because the 30% owner government does
It's not
have
in
the-
cash.
Yes.
It's all, even before the thing started, the thing is not in cash.
Yes. So
And which is the way it's been structured all along. But I'm saying that these competitors have already been disabled, not necessarily by competitive activities, most of them by ownership, acquisition, things outside of this jurisdiction which affects the way they are positioned in this country. We've seen. But I am a bit reluctant to go in the direction of government policy of trying to clip the wings of the so-called significant market player. Okay, now how does that happen? Does MTN by any way have first mover advantage? No, they don't. They were not the first to start. They were not the first. It was Tigo that started first. Okay,
Then they were
that's
Mobitel.
Mobitel. Then you had Celtel, which came with the ARMS technology, although they didn't start operations till late. And then Scancom took over from another company, I forget the name, and then in 94, 95, 96, they were up and running. Okay, now, when Celtel went for the ARMS technology, which was very predominant in the North American place, MTN sat down in 96, 97 and decided, no, let's go GSM.
GSM.
Although we've all started with analog, let's go GSM because that's the future of telephony. Okay, America said no way on this planet Earth are we going GSM. So you see, they took decisions that at the time were not so popular. So what I'm saying is that they have become who they have become as a result of consistent
Consistency.
performance.
So we shouldn't try and punish them for their
No,
success.
you can't punish them for their success.
So that SMP declaration is neither here nor there.
Well, if you are declaring an SMP,
Yeah.
okay, the objective is to make the consumer better. It's not just to clip the wings of
The person who's doing
the
well.
person who is doing well.
Yeah.
When MTN started investing in through their corporate social responsibility in building schools and other interventions, where were the competitors?
Even Momo.
No, wait. Where were the competitors?
Yeah.
When MTN changed the face of entertainment in Ghana by investing in entertainment, where were the competitors? So the emotional connect that they established between the telco as they were, which before then was only an engineering company.
Yeah.
They turned it from an engineering company into a market customer service company.
Yeah.
And you are saying that you want to clip their wings. Whose idea was that?
You can't.
So I'm saying that if you want to declare them an SMP, maybe that's what the industry says. Make sure that in so doing, it is the consumer that benefits.
And you're not able to guarantee that.
So if the consumer is not benefiting, then we are not so sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this idea of they are too big. They are too big means what?
Good question.
That MTN, you are too big. That they came in big? Is that the question?
No,
Where was Ghana Telecom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, decision, for instance, was government able to stop the decision of Vodafone BV to sell off their shares to Telcel?
No.
You can't.
can't.
There are certain things that you don't touch. Let's refine our regulatory structures.
Yeah.
Let's use regulations for the benefit
To
of the
enable,
consumer. Yes,
not
you
to.
are an enabler.
It's almost like the regulation is.
If the idea
It's-
was
it's punitive.
to cut down
Yeah.
the size of
Yeah.
MTN,
Yeah.
then I don't think it's healthy.
And we don't even have a competition law properly put
Because
out.
the others are not performing the way they want, not because they don't operationally know how to. It's just that they
no
have
investment.
the investment is not there, and ownership
But I also
keeps changing.
I think you made a very fantastic point. The other point I wanted to add was the mobile money. You know what's funny? You know that Momo was actually created by Safaricom with M-Pesa,
Yeah, M-Pesa,
which is the sister company of Vodafone. So Vodacom in Kenya, they were
And it's a massive
yes.
company.
So what is interesting is that whereas the parent company of Vodafone, of course, now it's called Telcel, or they will change the name. They're just in the Vodafone name. They, you can say, had the first mover in Africa on the Momo side.
Okay.
Somehow,
Safaricom.
yes. Somehow in Ghana, Vodafone Cash came many years after
yes,
MTN. Momo. Do you get my logic?
Hold it there. You see, and this is the point I'm making, that is driven by vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When everybody saw a telecommunications company as an engineering company, they saw it as a customer service company. When everybody saw a telecommunications company as a voice communication company, they saw it as data communications company. When they saw it as just a telecoms, they saw it as a financial services company. When others were watching. So I'm only saying that they have been consistent with innovation. They have not gone to sleep. So basically, they haven't gotten here by chance or by any advantage. So let's not put impediments on their way just to clip their
So the
way.
question now then becomes, what should government do now that the SMP declaration, based on MTN's own story in graphic, as FBI is saying, is meaning that they have to charge higher prices? Because that SMP declaration, one of the things it says is that if your competitor is offering a certain price level within a bundle, you cannot charge a lower price. So even if MTN feels that we want to sell data for you lower, so long as its competitors have a certain floor, MTN cannot go below.
Yes.
So you can
What
say
should
that,
government do?
yes, what should government do?
Government should make it easier for the other competitors to attract better
Customers.
No.
Better investment.
Investment. Yes. So the threshold of investment, whatever it takes to get companies to put their money into it, we have to compromise that
To make
make it
so because
easier.
without, so this is a good question. So now that you are in an environment which is now going through economic sort of
transition,
the economic going transition, foreign capital, because of the higher interest rates in the Western world, a lot of people who have money prefer to invest in the Western world. So this is a very good time to invest on that
As
scale
for
in Ghana.
telcos, it's always good to invest in Ghana. I'll
Still?
explain why.
Still?
It's always good. The only problem is the regulation must be consistent.
They don't feel that the regulation helps them.
The regulation is becoming a problem. If the regulation is consistent,
So even with the difficult macro environment, you think that they can attract the money because
they can.
the market is profitable.
They can. Years ago, we never had the numbers like Nigeria did. Okay, they always made up with talk time spent talking.
For a time, they said Ghana people talk more.
Exactly.
So they were making their money
there's
there.
always a way.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that if we have consistent regulation and regulators must invest in themselves to be ahead
But
of the industry. Most of the time, regulators are behind the industry.
While not disagreeing with your regulation point, I want to push the macro point a bit. So if you have a company that invests using dollars, so let's assume they come and invest in AT or Vodafone, and they bring maybe $100 million. The exchange rate volatility makes it difficult for them, because you know that when you did the investment and the Citi was maybe 6 to the dollar and it becomes 12, you need to do a whole lot more in Ghana to get enough money to pay back in dividend in
That's
dollars.
correct.
So that's point number one.
That's correct.
Then you also have inflation and consumers' ability to purchase. So when you have inflation and high cost of things, generally people's discretionary income reduces, and therefore the likelihood of the product doing well is also higher, stronger, less. Then you have a strong competitor. So if you have money to come and say, I'm coming to invest in AT or Vodafone, you have an MTN that's very strong. So that's where maybe the SMP may make sense. So you can say, one of the regulatory things that can help a new investor is to say, the government has put in a law that will not let the dominant market player out-compete you on price. Do you see where the logic is? So they will say, okay, if I invest in Airtel, Tigo, or Vodafone, which is only 15% of the market, the SMP regulation means that, because do you know that you did this at Coca-Cola, when big companies are in the market and a smaller competitor comes in, because you have a bigger space, you can reduce your price for 6 months and kill them.
It's not just the fact that you have a bigger space; it's a numbers game.
That's what I'm saying.
No, so what I'm saying.
So the government SMP may be logical now.
You see, if
In the
cannot-
context of-
for me,
in-
it cannot be logical if it does not benefit the final consumer.
Let me give you an example. In this, you are selling a drink in a company like Cameroon, and then a competitor comes with a local product. If you have a huge financial pot, so you can say for the next 6 months, I'm reducing all my price of my drink half price. The smaller guy will die because he cannot compete with that price. So what the regulator is saying is that because you have so much money, you are so big, let me make it impossible for you to reduce your price below a certain level, because you can do that to kill Nathan because Nathan is small. So he's trying to protect Nathan by saying that you being so big and with such a big space cannot reduce your price. That's what he's trying to do.
My point. So with this same scenario, who benefits? Isn't the consumer? Isn't the consumer who is now benefiting because of low price?
No, you don't get me.
No,
let me explain.
The consumer benefits.
That it just doesn't benefit
because the small player is competing on lower price.
No, but you don't get it. Let me explain. What I'm saying is that Nathan is selling his drink at 2 cedis.
And he's a small player.
He's a small player. Mm-hmm. Your drink was costing you 2 cedi 50 pesos. Mm-hmm. But because you want to kill Nathan, you reduce your price to 1 cedi for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Consumers will say, hey, Samuel's drink is 1 cedi. Yeah, better. Now, once Samuel is selling 1 cedi, Nathan's 2 cedis becomes very expensive.
Yes.
So the consumer benefit from your 1 cedi, but it's an unfair competition because you have.
It's not unfair. Well,
it is. Let me explain. I'm saying that
I worked. You see,
no, you don't get it.
I painstakingly worked to achieve that 1 cedi.
I know, but you see, I am trying to explain the logic.
Over time.
I'm saying that this is the logic behind SMP. The logic is that because you, Samens, you are selling at 250. Nathan is selling at 2. Nathan is small. So your shareholders say, Charlie, kill Nathan. So you reduce your price to 1 for 6 months. Nathan becomes expensive. You wipe Nathan out. When you wipe Nathan out after 6 months, you can raise your price back. So my point is that the regulator says, no, we cannot allow you to reduce your price to 150 when Nathan is selling at 2 because you have a larger market share and you are a muscular player. So they are saying that you have to make sure that your price is not lower than Nathan.
I get that.
And I'm saying that logic doesn't necessarily benefit the consumer in the short run.
This is the point I'm making. That so what is the point? Is it just to claim?
No, or to benefit.
Okay.
No, they are saying.
Let me ask. Let me ask.
I'm saying that SMP. Yes,
let me ask you.
Yes.
What if one day we wake up?
Yes.
And hear that the parent company of MTN has taken over Airtel Tigo? Would they stop it?
No, the government can say no.
I mean, why? You see,
they can say no because because
that's what is happening anyway.
No, because the analysis can say that distorts the market. So that the regulator can say the regulator can put in place rules to prevent that.
But we've just seen it. We've just seen it between Airtel and Tigo.
Yeah, but they are both small players, so it's not the same.
No, they are small players in Ghana.
Yes,
but not necessarily in every part of
the regulator has power only in Ghana.
I get that.
And the regulator is saying
so I'm just saying that regulator go in the interest of the final consumer. This thing of clipping the wings
I understand you, but
because just because they are big,
and
but it didn't just become big.
I'm trying to explain to you the logic behind the SMP price rule, which is the example I gave you, which you agree with me.
I get that. That I get. All I'm
so that's what they are trying to do.
No, but
so they are not trying.
But they've been doing this thing since 2020, and the outcome shows that they have not achieved what they want to achieve.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm saying that the SMP rule has many dimensions. The issue of fair pricing is one of it. Somebody can say MTN, because of that fair pricing rule, cannot lower their price to benefit consumers. But MTN itself has said to us that they are raising prices also because of operational cost. Now, I'm saying that whilst the SMP for Ghana may not have worked, the logic behind SMP, I understand it. Using the example between you and Nathan and your pricing, that if you are big enough to lower your price to a point where you can kill Nathan, the consumer benefits, but it's only temporary because as soon as Nathan is dead, you show us your true colors. Yeah. So the regulator, I think that's what they were thinking. But you are right in saying that you don't just use SMP price regulation when you haven't empowered Nathan to compete. So you can't say Samen shouldn't sell below a certain price when nobody's investing in Nathan. You can say, okay, Samen, for the next 2 years, you can't sell below, using my example, 2 cedis. But make sure that Nathan, and that's his point, make sure that Nathan has enough muscle to also grow so the market becomes better for us. But this is a case where the consumers are just looking for lower price because the regulator has not regulated to a point where people get quality service. You see, when people feel they are not getting what they pay for, they become very price conscious and then eventually price sensitive. So we are back to the regulator. The regulator has many tools in his skill set, as Apia said. Unfortunately, our regulators use it like a hammer. There should be regulation that should also encourage investors to come in.
We should be very
to support this guy.
Deliberate about that.
Yes.
Okay, we should be deliberate about that because
you know
it's too subjective. Okay, so what if one day MCN South Africa decides that MTN cry.
But you know they won't do that. Though.
No, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
what if?
I'm just saying. Because we've seen some happen in
But I
other
also want to make
industries
another
before.
point for you too.
You get me?
Yes.
So the MTN that MTN is having a good day in Ghana.
Yeah.
They can't say the same thing in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are indigenous players in Nigeria who have the backing of the system.
To frustrate them.
Yes, you understand. So I'm just saying that
Yeah.
let's hone what we have. Let's encourage other other companies to grow,
Yeah.
not at the expense necessarily of the market leader. That's all I'm saying. Because we have been in Ghana here. It was Mobitel, and then came Celtel, and then Space Phone came, and Space Phone over a period of 20 years have become a significant market player. I'm saying that they didn't do that by going to sleep.
The other question we have to answer.
Culture of hard work, innovation, and also transformative processing.
Does government have any shares in 80 at Altigo?
I think they own it now.
All right. So again, this
They should sell it.
No,
They
this-
should sell
no.
it proper.
Yeah, I'm coming.
But even in Nigeria, just look at if you look at the gaps, for instance, so I'm looking at MTN holds the largest market share of the Nigerian telco market, but it's at 38%.
Yes.
What is the share in Ghana?
Ghana is probably above 60.
Yeah.
60.
Now something is the problem.
Rightly so, because they've worked very
Now,
hard.
I wanted to say a few things about the MTN issue. Two questions here. So government involvement in MTN, in Vodafone and AT, is it a coincidence that they are not doing as well? Can we blame government involvement for they are not doing well, or it's more their strategic choices they made?
Bernard, there are national security issues involved in this thing. Okay, sustainability, industry sustainability, and all those. We understand. But what I'm saying is that don't take a punitive approach. That's all I'm saying.
We've gone beyond that. What I'm trying to do now is to look at what to do with the two companies, the other two.
Oh, I said it.
Yeah,
They
let's discuss it a bit. So MTN, Vodafone government has 30, and then I think the other company has 70. Should government get more active in Vodafone, pump cash into it to encourage the others to bring more money so it gets stronger for the sake of competition? Second point, 80. You said they should sell it. All of it or some of it? What type of person should they look for? Because we are trying to... So the government has two roles. A shareholder in two companies, but also a regulator of an industry. So how do they manage their shares in the two to strengthen the two so that the overall becomes better?
Okay. I think we don't necessarily have to co-locate the role of the
Regulator.
the regulator with government shares. They should be two separate items. We need a strong regulator who is ahead of the industry. That's one thing.
Okay.
Now, unless we can establish that the involvement, that the shareholding involvement of government in such institutions gives them a certain operational advantage, the answer is no. I'm thinking we should rather open our system up for investors that have strategic tools to change the face of our industry. Those who have done it somewhere and it has worked before, those who have the money. It's not easy to come by, but if we package and go out there, I am sure the same way Vodafone was able to get Telcel to take over their shares in Vodafone Ghana, we should be able to do, because what we have now, the industry somewhat has plateaued, except for what MTN is doing. All the other competitors are just waiting to see what happens, whether there's going to be more investment in their companies, whether the industry is going to change to give somebody an advantage. Whatever happens is okay, except that it should not be directed at disadvantage.
I see you are paying some making up. What I wanted to say though was that, sentimentally, I feel like government, if it wasn't for the way our governance generally has been bad, I would have said that government should have shares in some of these companies for, as you said, national security reasons, and also for technology transfer, or essentially
skills transfer.
Because when I look at mining, all right, now listen to Otin Jesse. your government role on the mines is very passive. They don't invest money. They don't appoint quality people on the boards. So a lot of things happen on the blind side of the board. You appoint former ministers or politicians on the board, and they are not there really to play a role as the eye and the ear of the state in a strategic company. So they carry them to travel to wherever they have to go, and they rather see their being on the board as a reward for their loyalty to a party. Whereas you can say, if you own, and I'm expanding this not just to telcos, you could use that 30% in any company, put a high quality Ghanaians on the board to understand the way these people make money. Now, the issue around even repatriation of profits. Every March, when you make millions of dollars in profit, you invest in a country, you have to repatriate and pay your shareholders. If you are 30% of that, some of that stays here. So the quality of governance on these, so it's not really whether government should own shares or not. But if government to own the shares, who they put on the board and what they do with their being on the board and how that benefits the country. But in Ghana, if you see board appointment as a reward for somebody helping you win an election, this is what you get. So you have passive government membership of boards. It doesn't really change anything. Meanwhile, these private companies, Ebenezer Asante is a Ghanaian. He used to work at Unilever. If you look at the quality of leaders, even from Ghana, that MTN has produced in other African countries, as you said, they didn't see just engineering. They saw marketing and customer service. And these are Ghanaian guys. Are you telling me that we don't have quality Ghanaians that we can put on to represent us? But we will not.
We do. Eric Nsanko is here.
They won't put him on. I don't know.
George Anda is here. We saw what. Look, you may not like his politics, but he has something to show for what he did with MTN. So So what I'm saying is that if we want to sanitize the industry for our own good, we can. It's not. You see, it shouldn't be left in the hands of one person.
Do you think? Do you think Parliament should? It's funny we played.
The answer is yes.
Yes. You know why? I was going to say that this morning we are discussing the. Of course, we are not discussing, but there was a voice clip of the Minister of Telecommunications and the Speaker. For a country which has a big issue like MTN raising tariff by 15% and the whole telco industry, what's happening with Airtel and Vodafone, you would have thought Parliament could have invited the minister to say, what is your update on the future of the telco industry? What's the latest on the 80 and our shares? Are we getting a buyer to support? What's government going to do with this 30% in Vodafone? How are we going to strengthen? You get me? In a country that has these challenges, the minister probably should be someone to ask to give an update on the overall sector, to talk about whether the SMP has been effective, whether the 15% price that is being given us at this time. But I don't think we are focused on that.
The SMP will not be effective because we don't have an ideal competitive market.
So the SMP thing,
no, because we already there's the others have been disabled by decisions that are above their heads. You understand? I mean, look, Airtel Tigo, 80, they call it, is looking good from the outside. But we know that they will do with more investments. You get me? So if government has any role to play, the government should now look at it as an opportunity to re-energize the company to be able to compete at a level that is consistent with the direction of the industry. But the regulator, as always, has to be an enforcer of the law, not to disadvantage only one player, especially just because they are big. I mean, that's the point. Yeah. You see, it's like, you have Peace FM or multimedia, okay? Then somebody says that, they have too many listeners, so let's do something to cut them down so that the others will benefit. If the others go to sleep, why should you blame them?
Yeah.
If the others wake up at 1 p.m. when Peace FM is waking at dawn.
Yeah, but that's true. But if it gets to a point where the market leader is, and I'm not saying MTN has done this, but if you are government and the market leader's dominance begins to affect quality of what people get, or begins to result in excessive price hikes.
That's why I preceded it by saying that a strong regulator enforcer of the law.
Yeah.
You
No, I'm
understand?
just saying
Yeah.
that to tidy up the second part of what you said. That
Because
the regulator cannot sit aloof
At
when it
all,
realizes
at
that,
all.
so they may have sat down to allow this to happen, but they can't say, let's sit down for it to
not at all,
continue.
because you see,
Alright?
it
But
doesn't-
I think the point, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying that it doesn't matter how big you are, the regulator should be able to get you to conform to certain laid down standards
Yeah.
and requirements. And I like we're saying, we feel that the regulator has not really done that.
The regulator has been very punitive and revenue focused. So, for example, if they even fine a telco for breaches, they don't
Fines
order the
are-
telco to pay back the consumers. The regulator takes the money. Do you get it? If like you want to help consumers, you can say for 10% of my call that's dropped unfairly, compensate everybody with a 2% this thing. But the regulator is more interested in harvesting. So they fine you and they use the money to do their own thing. And it's not developmental. So I feel the Minister of Communications should go to Parliament and give an overview of the sector and justify this SMP thing and explain whether it's giving us value or not. I don't think it has.
Aruna has been looking for the minister for some time.
But they should invite her.
Yeah, he has, but it hasn't
They should invite her because
He was minister too before.
Yeah.
What did he do differently? These politicians.
let's read some comments. Yes.
Okay, so Roland from my part of town says he's inside control market. The market, Charlie, which part are you, Roland? Good morning, guys. A company that rose to the top by grit, consistency, and smartness, not known for any shady government deals. They just put in the work to get to the top, while the others, especially their competitors, were just stuck in their old ways. Now Ghanaians are being punished for it. Bernard, monopoly in the telco sector is dangerous not only for competition, but also it provides a single point of failure for us as a nation. Imagine if MTN data service is down for 1 hour. Do you know its impact on the economy, banking, medicals, national security, etc.? So some good points there. The other networks have deteriorated over time. And then Nii from Citi is not very happy with a lot of the platforms. When I call to complain, they say that they cannot help they're not in my area. Okay, so this one updates us with who is the majority shareholder of Vodafone. Yes, it's Telcel. So government has a stake in both Vodafone and AT, but it's regulating MTN interest. Well, of course, it's a regulator. This one says, I used M-Pesa in Tanzania many years ago before its introduction in Ghana. I was wondering at the time why Ghana was way behind in technology at the time. Thanks to MTN, the technology was later introduced to Ghana. The system shouldn't treat a company which has helped in the development of a strong telco sector for granted. This is Dominic. Better. This is in support of your point. I totally agree. Monopolies can have a significant negative impact on consumers and the economy. Government has a responsibility to regulate monopolies to protect competition and promote fair markets.
But the question is, how do they do it?
But
Whilst we are,
MTN is not a monopoly. It's a market leader. We should clarify the difference.
no, he's saying that if the market leadership continues in a trajectory without the intervention, they would effectively become a monopoly. That's
With
what
a
he's saying.
strong regulator.
Yeah, but that's what a regulator. Samis, are you saying? Hold on, no. If the guy keeps growing and the rate is growing, and the others keep deteriorating and the rate are deteriorating, it's only a matter of time before he will become the single player.
By default, single player.
Yes.
I get that, which is not the ideal situation. No, I get that. I'm only saying that we shouldn't punish them for it.
Let me read
It's an admission that we have.
Let me read a message that will help you. This gentleman claims he used to work at Vodafone. He says, Bernard, I'm following a discussion and would like to make an input as an ex-Telcom worker of Vodafone. The government was one of Vodafone's issues. The government was primarily concerned with getting money. It never made any investment in the company in the past. MTN has been a market bully. This is from an ex-Vodafone worker. Stifling any advance made by the smaller competitors. The current state of MTN affairs is a threat for the sector, making it unattractive for new investors to invest. Bernard, you have to also remember that MTN is the government's largest taxpayer, making them very difficult to control. I can assure you that numerous battles have been fought to guarantee that competition flourishes in Ghana. Nevertheless, MTN's power, which extends to the government, prevents this. Let me leave you with this. The regulator's best move was the SMP. But now that it is not yielding, the regulator should push for a merger of AT and Vodafone to normalize competition. I agree with you that the government should own a significant amount of shares in MTN. We can't blame MTN. They saw an opportunity and took it. We can only blame the government for all of this. Have a good day, Bernard. So a few points of nuance there.
I have a response to this.
Okay, so he said a lot of things. So let's take it one by one. He says, number one, government did not invest in Vodafone. You agree? 2, MTN has been a bully, stifling any advance made by the smaller competitors. From an ex-Vodafone person talking. He's saying that the current state of affairs of MTN's market power, and because they are a powerful taxpayer, they influence government, is a threat to the country. That's his view. You can respond to that. He also thinks that SMP has not worked, which you said is true, but AT and Vodafone should merge so they can grow. So which one?
Do the second point about MTN
being a
bully?
How can MTN be a bully? Bully who? Bully who?
The members. The members of the.
I know.
But somebody, but you know that they can bully the government.
No, they can.
They can.
No, they may have. You see, they may have a bargaining power. It's not the same as bully.
Well,
And you see, this person, I don't take it from him if he says that he is an ex-worker. Okay, but I can say without a shadow of doubt that he wasn't in part of strategic management. I can say from the
words he uses.
he's used. What I'm saying is that if you say MTN is bullying, it's like we know for a fact that they did something, and in this industry, the only person or the only body you can bully to have your way is a regulator. Okay, so what bargaining power you get with government comes naturally because government also needs the money that you pay back. It's like the mining companies.
But Samens, I think
the mining companies do so much evil to our environment.
Papa,
why don't we sack them?
The word bully may be wrong, but I think that if you've listened to the flow of what he's saying, he made about 4 points.
I dealt with
about
the
3 of
one.
which you agree with.
The
first point was that the first point was that government didn't invest in the company.
No.
That's
what he
number
said, no. Government has investment. When is that? When they call
He said
for
government-
cash,
yeah, government doesn't give.
bring
And
money.
government- so that's-
every time government is. That's why I was telling you that government just being shareholder doesn't solve the problem.
No, I'm saying
In fact, this is the reason I was telling
you've
you.
dealt with the bully issue. But I'm saying that when you listen to everything the gentleman is saying, he's saying that the government's strategy for investment in Vodafone was wrong in the way they were not bringing money.
But they never brought money anyway.
Number 2, he of course he claims that MTN is too powerful. That is relative. You disagree?
No, I didn't say that. MTN is too powerful, but rightly so, because they have worked for it. That's all I'm saying.
No. See, let's be clear. The guy is joining the 2 points. He said they are too powerful, and that's why they are bully.
Oh.
So maybe you disagree with the bully, but they're too powerful. But let's focus on what we agree on. He's basically also saying that the SMP thing was important to try and regulate, but it didn't work. So they should go beyond SMP and now help the 2 companies.
Which is what we have said.
So we've also, so I'm saying that you about 60% of what the guy said you agree with.
Yes.
It's just the choice of words that we disagree with on bully. I just want to read another one. This one is from somebody who says, Bernard, the SMP concept has been proven ineffective. If you don't want a market player to grow beyond a certain size, then you have to set a market cap in advance. Example, when you hit 50% of the market, you can't add any new customers. That's what they should have done. This is an interesting point. That you don't wait for the guy to reach 68% and then you say, do you get it? So they were sleeping on the job.
That one there, we've already established that. A couple more messages. Habib could help me here. Thank you. For a long time, people wanted to buy one touch SIM cards for 50 times the price, but it was hoarded. MTN came and released SIMs. One touch had the chance, but messed up. That's what he's saying. Samens, for this, I support the regulator. This action might not return immediate value to consumers, but a necessary action to secure the nation's future. A small trigger from the SMP can hold all of us to ransom. This is a monopoly in the making if it is not checked. I think...
Well, it has to be checked. It has to be checked. But what I'm saying is that don't deliberately disadvantage them. That's all I'm saying.
I think a compelling...
But
let me finish this. I think a compelling call for the other telcos to invest in the industry should have preceded the SMP declaration mark from DC. Good morning, Bernard. SMP logic only works on paper. The other players have been raising prices, which automatically triggers price increments from MTN. However, the other players are unable to invest in expansion and innovation due to huge legacy debts, especially due to co-location tower fees. The best approach is to use regulation to open up MTN's network to offer infrastructure services such as MVNO, similar to what happens in the European markets. The current approach only benefits the telcos and not the consumer, because VF and AT will continue to increase prices. As someone who knows this stuff, it's very technical.
Can you
This consumer.
Okay, let's
can,
go.
can you
Let me repeat the message for you.
Repeat the message. I wasn't focused.
Okay, so it says good morning. The SMP logic only works on paper. The other players have been raising prices, which automatically triggers price increments from MTN. However, the other players are unable to invest in expansion and innovation due to huge legacy debts, especially due to co-location tower fees. The best approach is to use regulation to open up MTN's network to offer infrastructure services such as MVN, I don't know what that is, similar to what happens in European markets. The current approach only benefits the telcos and not the consumer, because VF and AT will continue to increase prices. This is coming from Eric. Okay, this one says, I started a model in the country. I struggle through the cracks, parallel with other competitors. I'm able to make strategic decisions and have increased my numbers. The other competitors are struggling for reasons best known to them. Someone who has shares in the competition, playing the referee's role, now comes to say, I can't price how I want to after all I have gone through to get where I am,
And then you say,
to be able to price how I am pricing. Isn't that shocking a bit? This is somebody who is not very
You
happy.
see what they're saying?
Yeah.
They're saying that government, you have shares in AT, you have shares
Hey,
in
you didn't do
Vodafone.
anything.
So you are my competitor. And now you're telling me that you, the government, now you're telling me that, I mean, for this is oversimplified.
Simplifying
but-
it, yes.
No, this
But
is,
you know, it's an interesting scenario that in Kenya they've been struggling with Safaricom for a very long time, because
Okay.
when it
so
comes
are they
to
as big in Kenya as MTN is in Ghana?
Safaricom is
is
Safaricom.
a virtual
It's
monopoly.
actually where we are trying to not to get MTN.
What is Safaricom doing in Kenya?
No, it owns you know,
it is
Safaricom is both data and mobile money.
They've taken
so
everything.
what the suggestion has been for a very long time, last I checked, was they had been trying to separate the
Data
regulators
business.
for the two. So mobile money will become its own, regulated by CBK.
Who is the number 2 player in Kenya?
That would be, I think that was Airtel, if I'm not
Are they
mistaken.
seeing top?
They were struggling. As for the state one, the Kenya Telecom, the Charlie was gone.
But it's MTN in Kenya.
Etisalat was there.
So the Safaricom situation is actually what you are trying to prevent with MTN.
Yes. But even that one, the government itself has resisted Parliament in breaking up.
Safari.
But the last thing I want to say though is that
I think Etisalat too is there.
the last thing I want to say is that you see, we should see MTN's success also as a Ghana success, in a sense that, again, I look at the management of MTN and the way Ghanaians are doing well in Africa in MTN. Look at something like the Momo, what do you call these guys? The Momo agents.
The agents,
They are
yes.
about 400,000. These are jobs. So,
Yes. That
so
is opened up.
if MTN hadn't done what it did, a lot of these guys don't be working. No? So, well, as I think Samese's point about let's not punish is a very important point, because you see, when a company plays the game and does it well, we shouldn't let them
Feel on
do
top.
basa basa, but we may not know what we lose if they leave, because I think they do a good job. We can do better with this, the data service. The data service
overall,
is not
across
the
the
best.
board.
that
Yes,
one, yeah.
All of them.
but I think on the Momo agent thing and the size of the company and how they've grown, we have to appreciate that somebody has led that company well, and we have to think about what to benefit from that.
Whilst also urging the government to do better with its investments in the competition.
Yeah. We'll take a break.
Because the Kenya thing gives us a very good mirror to see how we are surviving in this telecom industry.
Yeah.
Well, everything we've been trying to do in this telecom environment they have been ahead of us. You understand? Telecom Kenya was there.
How is their Momo service? Is it better than ours?
Well, generally,
M-Pesa.
in
M-Pesa. No, just give me. But you've experienced the two. You've lived there.
Man, it does everything, which is why I was telling you that, you see, our M-Pesa services here is purely cash out. We're mostly cash out.
In this, what is the case?
It runs your life.
That's what I'm saying. That
Wow.
I was going to say everything that depends on the new media platform in Kenya is ahead of us. You understand?
So M-Pesa, they are more integrated in payment
even before we
Man,
started here.
I
Wow.
never saw my landlord's face.
when you were in Kenya.
Everything, when I was paying my journalist registration fees, everything you are doing. It's on your phone.
So Ghana, the cash out. But you see, don't
Yeah, we
forget,
do a lot of cash out.
and I'm saying that, you see, let's look at our economy. We are a cash-based economy. And these Momo agents depend on the cash out. So if you don't do cash out, the Momo agents...
Yeah, but that's why I told you that if we are to truly get to the a cashless economy, we say we are developed, because that is the objective. And you look at the volumes of business we've been doing.
Yeah, but you see, that's why I can say that. You see, these objectives solve your problem. You have people who don't have work. You have 400,000 Momo agents. So if you get a cashless economy and Momo agents will go and sleep at home, what would they be doing?
No,
So let's think about what we are trying to achieve.
It's one way of looking at it. It's one way of.
You have to employ people too. It's also part of the economy. So let them do the
objective is to have a cashless economy.
No, your objective Your objective is not to have a cash. Your objective is to do economic development for people to get jobs to do. Your objective is not the cashless economy.
The Momo thing serves different purposes.
Yeah.
The cashless society works in the urban areas.
Yeah.
The cashing out
works in the rural
works
areas.
in the peri-urban and rural areas. And I think it's a fine...
It can coexist.
Yeah, it can coexist.
Nigeria, for instance, is a fine example of what Samis is saying.
Yes. You know.
Yeah, but
What's
Nigeria,
so key?
Nigeria, we are ahead of them in Momo.
Yes,
we
when
are.
it comes to the agencies and the banking aspect
The Nigeria,
of it,
their banks are stronger than the telcos.
yes,
but
that's what
here
I'm
I
saying,
think
that
the
the
telcos
banking on the banking aspect of it, the Nigerian Momo side is very strong.
because it was bank driven.
Yes,
But the innovation
That
in
is the
MTN,
point.
yeah, but here it was
It
telco
took
driven.
us forever for the financial services.
Yeah, the banks here
space
didn't agree.
to accept.
Yes. So the telcos here were the ones that innovated. The banks here were not interested.
So now this brings the point that I'm talking about, that the regulator must always strive to be ahead of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the industry is ahead of
Yeah,
you,
you suffer.
always have to play
Yeah,
catch up.
it's true.
And at times you have to stop them in order to play
Catch
the
up.
catch up and bully your way.
Yeah, which is
and
not the
if
right way
you
to
bully
do.
your way, by now we should know
Yeah.
that it is the consumer that ultimately suffers. It's
Yeah,
as simple as
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Look at the coincidence. MTN didn't make it in court with the tax thing. Well, isn't
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the week after, they increased prices.
You see, oh.
If I should,
Yeah,
if I
you see,
should do a connection
you see,
here,
oh.
who is going to
Suffer.
It's the consumer.
Yeah. So GRA may have his way, but the consumer
The
will pay.
consumer will pay for it.
Yeah.
It's like this, all these things we are charging. 22 items that we don't have to
Yeah.
import
Yeah,
again.
Yeah.
you will pay.
Every country that has done it has had to pay through the consumers. You check.
So we are the ones who suffer.
Every country, I'm saying that every country that has done what KTM is. I'm not saying it's bad, but we should be ready that the consumer will pay, because you can't outcompete the global forces.
That's the issue.
Because it's a numbers game,
Especially when you
economies
are
of
small,
scale.
yes, and you
if
are
you
not-
cut them out, you have reduced your footprint.
And you are not the best at producing.
You are not the
some
best
of-
at producing
some of
it,
the things.
especially when it's technology led. Go to Brazil and ask them, when they did the same thing with computers 15, 20 years ago. They blocked import of computers in Brazil. You know what? They decided to use that to energize the computer assembly and manufacturing industry in Brazil. Guess what happened?
Okay.
10 years after, they were 10 years behind, because the global industry
Had moved.
had
Just
moved.
where they reach.
You say cars,
Oh, you know, I make trailers.
automobile.
Yeah.
Hey, Ghana, let's not import automobiles. We have to go back to the days of Boafo and Adom.
Now you are threatening to cause laughter.